Next speaker is Brendan Schulman, the Vice President of Policy at Boston Dynamics. Now, most of you maybe even saw the Boston Dynamics robots earlier in Carolina's presentation. He'll be walking us through towards a national robotics strategy, how government can drive the success of the humanoid industry. This is really important for a country like Japan, where industry and government walk hand in hand. So let's hand it over to Brendan, give him a large round of applause, and he can let's learn how we can drive success for the humanoid industry on collaborating with government. Brendan, welcome to the stage.
Thank you very much. Really great to be here and to see all of you interested in humanoid robotics. I think when it comes to government interaction and engagement with the robotics industry, we have to talk about the starting point. And the starting point is really robots like these that are fixed in place in factories. They're doing one task repetitively. These are the kinds of robots that government typically hasn't needed to be involved in. And in many countries, there hasn't been a lot of interaction between the robotics industry and government stakeholders. Things are changing, obviously. We're all here at this amazing humanoid summit. And at Boston Dynamics, as many of you know, we've had legged robots, namely our Spot quadruped, out on the market for about 6 years, doing all kinds of interesting applications that I'll explain in a moment. But this is really showing the new generation of robots, and in particular, the ability of robots to go places that they couldn't before. Across uneven terrain, up and down stairs, opening doors, across society, across the places where we work and live. And this is already showing a lot of commercial return on investment. It's showing value in public safety applications. Just to give you a few examples here, here at a California State Transportation Department, Spot was used to inspect critical infrastructure, and within 10 minutes, saved that agency $60,000 US. So we are showing that legged robots, whether they're quadrupeds or humanoids, are already demonstrating value to customers like these. Here at a semiconductor fabrication plant in the northeastern United States, Spot is doing inspections to help the factory run efficiently. And very important to me is public safety, keeping people safe from harm. And here, Spot is being used for the detection of hazardous materials, potential safety risks, including at events like the Boston Marathon, Indy 500, et cetera. And in fact, some of you might know this, maybe not all of you, we had a robot that was shot in the line of duty. So this was a police situation where we had an armed, barricaded suspect with a hostage. It was a domestic violence situation. And the robot was sent in to try to understand what the situation was, and the suspect shot the robot 3 times. From our perspective, that was an amazing day for the technology, to have it deployed out there in these confined spaces in a hazardous situation, and for the robot to take the harm rather than people. Now, we talk a lot about the intersection of AI and robotics. This whole conference is really an example in detail of all these kinds of aspects. But from my perspective, when you talk about AI in government, the focus tends to be on intellectual output. Things like generative AI, data analytics, healthcare, companionship online, customer service, human resources. What robots are doing with AI, as you're learning these 2 days, is really making the robots better and more capable at what they're already doing out there in the world. And I don't need to get into much detail because there's so many great presentations here on all of these aspects of AI and robotics, large language models being the sort of paradigm for generative AI. And so what we talk about at Boston Dynamics is large behavioral models, LBMs. We've heard presentations over the past 2 days about visual language action and reinforcement learning. Just to give you a few examples of what we're doing in terms of bringing AI and robotics together in the real world. This is before and after Spot walking across a slippery floor. We had a customer who said to us, Spot is a great robot, but the robot is slipping because the floors in our factory are wet. Can you make the robot better at walking across the slippery floor? And we said, well, probably, but we don't know how to program that in a traditional way. Let's use reinforcement learning. And as you see on the video here, the before and the after is astonishingly different. And we were able to release that as a software update. So now, if you have a Spot robot, it's much better at walking across ice or walking across a wet floor. Similarly, we're concerned about hazards when Spot is in operation in a factory. Although Spot can walk over or around things, it sometimes gets caught just like that on cords, on things that are in the factory environment that might be possible for the robot to navigate over, like this cart, but it's not a great idea. It's enhancing the safety risks. So what we did is applied AI, had the computer vision recognize for the robot these hazards in the environment, and Spot is automatically deciding which route to take. Even though it could walk underneath the ladder, Spot is choosing to walk around because it's a safer path. So we're taking the robot that was already deployed out there doing useful things a few years ago is now even better thanks to AI. We're obviously at the Humanoid Summit, so what am I doing talking about quadrupeds? I think quadrupeds led the way in many respects to the extent we've been talking the past couple of days about investments and what is the future, and the question that someone just asked Carolina, like how long before AGI robots? Well, we know that legged robots walking around the world really are of value. We've already proven that with quadrupeds. So we're working on humanoids like many others here at the summit, and our vision there is to do operations that are difficult or dangerous or hazardous for humans, and particularly in manufacturing settings. So on the top left is the debut of our Atlas prototype at CES earlier this year in Las Vegas. And on the bottom right, that's a computer-generated image of our vision of the commercial version of Atlas doing automotive assembly, automotive manufacturing. That's our first application because that is a challenging, difficult thing for humans to do. And of course, there are also workforce shortages with respect to these kinds of jobs. Some of you may have seen our latest Atlas video. I think it was pretty cool. This is Atlas lifting a 45-kilogram fridge. Our engineer said, "Hey, Atlas, can you bring me a drink?" And obviously, that's a bit of a joke, but Atlas brought the entire fridge to the engineer. So this is a heavy object, the kind of thing that you might see in a factory, and getting the robot to do this operation, we think, is highly beneficial in all kinds of industrial applications. And of course, this is going to be by now very familiar based on all the other presentations here this week. We're, just like others, we are using AI to train the humanoids, using the bodysuit, generating the data using hand controllers and the view from the robot. In this case, we are teaching Atlas to catch a wheel. And in the next example, Atlas is sorting through a parts bin for spare parts. In this, we can kill the sound on that. Sorry about that. In this example, we have Atlas actually sorting through parts of Spot, which is kind of a little interesting. But what we're doing here is we're changing the environment. So this is all fully autonomous, and here the engineer is closing the lid, moving the bin, basically disrupting the environment and allowing the robot to figure out what to do next to accomplish the task. The kind of thing that might happen in a factory setting in real life. Now, the great news, although we are focused on these industrial applications, is that robots are leaving the factory. There's so many great examples here at the Humanoid Summit of companies that are working on different applications in the home, folding laundry, doing dishes. I'm excited about all those things too, even though we're focused on industrial applications. And I think that's great news and super important, particularly in Japan, because of the demographic challenge that I think you've heard people talk about already, not just in the United States, but really globally, is we just don't have the birth rates to sustain the workforce that we need to make things. So putting robots into places designed for humans to do difficult work really is quite beneficial. And that is really what has triggered this unprecedented wave of investment, high valuations, market projections. Sorry, I don't have the McKinsey report on here because I did the slides before the release of that, but yet another study of what the humanoid market is likely to be in the future, because if we can design these machines to do these kinds of tasks, there's enormous potential value downstream. And of course, that has triggered what I would say is a huge international competitive market. These are some maps that I found on X showing the humanoid companies in the United States, Europe, and China. Dozens of companies, and probably many that aren't included on here, are working on this technology to create beneficial applications. We also have to acknowledge that a robot that can maneuver across uneven terrain and complex environments and respond using artificial intelligence, much like consumer drones, is dual use in nature, by which I mean there are going to be military applications for that same technology. Whether or not you design for that, inevitably that's sort of one of the paths the technology tends to take over time. And here are just some examples I've spotted on the internet of these kinds of robots, humanoids, quadrupeds, being armed, being used in military exercises, and interestingly being used in boxing and maybe a sort of hand-to-hand combat type of scenario. So, how does this lead to government strategy and government interest? Well, remember, the starting point was government wasn't doing very much with robotics. That has changed dramatically because of all the reasons I've outlined. The intersection of AI with robotics, concerns about job displacement, particularly because a humanoid looks like a person that could take your job. There is concern by policymakers about what are we going to do about the workers who are displaced, even though that's been happening in terms of automation for decades. The dual-use nature, as I mentioned, is something that is of concern to the government. And questions about safety standards. We've heard about safety a number of times during the summit, including yesterday from the lawyers at Cooley about the need to make sure these technologies are deployed safely and in compliance with safety regulations. Well, new questions are emerging because this is a different technology that's used in places where it hasn't been used before. So national strategy. What does it mean to have a national strategy? Well, the starting point for this really are all the countries that already have had national strategies for a number of years, including highlighted at the top, Japan. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but this to me is a great idea because robots touch on all these different aspects of our lives and of our workplace and our home environment. Now in Washington, D.C., where I do a lot of my policy work, we have think tanks. These are organizations that study an issue and they talk about what government might need to do to facilitate a good outcome. And here's a number of organizations, think tanks, that have written up outlines of their vision and recommendations for a national strategy. I don't have enough time to cover all of them, but I would encourage you to look those up if you are interested in learning more. Just to give you one example, the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation has 23 recommendations for the US government to help support the robotics industry. And just to give you a couple of examples, increase funding for the Manufacturing USA program and establishing a center focused on technical training for robotics. Those are 2 of 23 recommendations, and those other organizations have their own sets of recommendations as well. When I study these papers, when I think about what does government need to do for robotics, not just in the United States, but in other countries, these tend to be the kinds of ideas that come out. Workforce training and education programs. We're creating these great robots. We need to make sure the workers know how to adopt them, use them safely, use them efficiently. So we need new training programs. And also, we need accelerants of adoption, because the way that you make the robots better is to have them deployed, gathering data. You use the data to help make the technology even better, as we've heard repeatedly here at the summit. So tax incentives to deploy robots are beneficial. Funding for research, one of the few things the US government has done on robotics under President Obama was the National Robotics Initiative. Funding research is a great way to create the next generation of robotics. Safety standards, as I mentioned, the existing standards may not fit these new technologies, so having government help design and develop those is beneficial. Privacy has come up repeatedly, cybersecurity, and best practices for deploying robots in new environments. Some of these things don't quite match their environment. We might need government guidance on how to deploy them safely. Lots of discussion in Washington on supply chain resilience, particularly with respect to national security, my next point, defense policies. And of course, being here in Japan, trade policy. What can we do with respect to international relations that might be beneficial to the robotics industry? We also do need ethical frameworks for the use of the robotics in society. As many of you know, we have worked to advocate against the weaponization of general purpose robots. And that's one of the things we're talking to government about as part of a national strategy as well. And then I think there's cultural drivers as well. Government can really be a vocal leader of the industry and to say to the manufacturing sector, you should look at and find ways to adopt robots into your industrial process. Because even if the ROI isn't there initially, in the long run, it's going to be necessary because of the demographic challenges that we are seeing. It was also really interesting to listen to Akuya-san's presentation from Métis yesterday, because there was an example of a new strategy where the government is directly involved in foundation models and generating data. I can't foresee the US government taking that approach, or maybe too many other governments, but that is an example of identifying a need or a challenge in industry the government can help solve. And I think it was really great to hear what the Japanese government is doing for the robotics industry here in Japan. So in short, this really is a unique technology that warrants specific and strategic government attention. And the US government really is starting to understand that. So really in the past 6 to 12 months, a lot has been happening in Washington on robotics. Just to give you some highlights, there was a hearing in the House Science, Space and Technology Committee on robots made in America. There, the chairman of the subcommittee said that as technologies like physical AI advance, it's more important than ever for the United States to adopt a national robotics strategy to support manufacturing, bolster our economy, and assist the American worker. This is really quite unprecedented. We haven't had members of Congress, US government, call for a national robotics strategy. The United States doesn't tend to do many national strategies, but here we are with members of Congress and also folks in the administration, in particular the Department of Commerce, convening us, the robotics industry, to talk about supply chain challenges and workforce training and education. You've also had a bill, the National Commission on Robotics Act, that would set up a congressional commission to study the issues and challenges and needs of the robotics industry and propose policies that would help, that would be helpful for the industry. And of course, this also involves international strategy and policy. So if some of what I'm talking about sounds like a good idea, something that you'd want to collaborate on, I would ask you to join us and start working together on engaging government. It seems like here in Japan, this is already working very, very well. Pleased to see that. But I heard at the outset of the summit that there are 30 countries represented here among all of you. So if this is the kind of initiative that you would like to discuss and work on together across international boundaries, please reach out to me. That's a QR code for my LinkedIn, probably the best way to reach me going forward. And I thank you and appreciate your attention.
Brendan, thank you so much.